Hello and welcome to another episode of the Expanse Abridged Podcast series. Today we've got chapter 30, which is a Miller chapter, and it's kind of continuing on from the antics of our boys on the little adventure, as they've kind of discovered all the funky stuff going on the protomolecule and people being crowded into the casino levels of Eros and the fun gas chambers and what not. So last time we kind of seen the boys, they've just been trying to formulate their escape plan, and they saw 30 guys armed with machine guns guarding the way out of the casino levels, and they were like, fuck, can't do that, you just do not get past those guys with no cover, etc. So we rejoin the boys from Miller's perspective, and they're sat on the floor with their backs to a bank of pachinko machines. And Miller's upset because his hat is on his bent knee. Holden's next to him, and he's looking around at the scenes of the casino level, with everyone kind of wandering around, prepared for death, looking like a Hieronymus Bosch painting. Hieronymus Bosch, I gave it a quick Google, is the guy that did the Heaven on Earth painting. It's kind of like a surrealist Dutch guy. The Dutch they've been doing funky things for many years, and they were doing lots of funky things when they figured out how to do painting. So it's one of those weird medieval ones where everyone looks like a worm and whatnot. And basically they're sat there and everything's getting a bit fucked. So the guards are kind of going around any big groups, they're dispersing, so people can't organise themselves. There's banger music in the background playing. One guy starts yelling at the police saying, I'm recording it, so not the police, the fake cops, the riot guys, saying, I'm recording everything, I'm a lawyer, and then someone shoots him in his kneecap. And the entire time it's happening, in the privacy of Miller's skull, everything slowly fell apart. He was aware of having two different minds. One was the Miller he was used to, familiar with. The one who was thinking about what was going to happen next and when he got out, like the police guy. Whilst the other Miller was different, quieter, sad maybe, but at peace. He'd read a poem many years before called The Deaf Self, and he'd kind of got all miserable about it, he was thinking about it. And I gave that poem a quick Google before we read about how Miller's depressed. And on the Expanse Reddit, the author actually replied, saying someone found a poem, and the poem goes, but what did it matter when all around him people, like forests, were going up in smoke? There was a freedom in calamity he had just begun to savour. So that's the actual poem itself, which the author has actually commented on the Reddit post 4 years ago as of recording, saying, yeah, that's the one. And the author of that poem was a mentor of mine in college back in the day, which is quite cute. Big man Daniel Abraham commenting. And Miller's kind of musing on this, getting all miserable because he's going all sad. And he says, a knot at the middle of his psyche was untying. All the energy he'd put into holding things together, Ceres, his marriage, his career, himself, was coming free. He'd shot and killed more men in the past day than in his whole career as a cop. He'd only started, to realise that he'd actually fallen in love with the object of his search after he knew for certain that he'd lost her. He'd seen unequivocally that the chaos he dedicated his life to, holding at bay, was stronger and wider and more powerful than he would ever be. No compromise he could make would be enough. His deaf self was unfolding in him, and the dark blooming took no effort. It was a relief, a relaxation, a long, slow exhale after decades of holding it in. He was in ruins, but it was okay, because he was dying. Our boy is not a happy boy. To which Holden replies, have you seen a little anime, or like a Misko and Morisco animation, with 5 dinosaurs and the evil guy in a big pink hat? Holden starts singing the tune and the Miller joins in, so they're dying then. And Miller's gone all poetic about Dutch painters from like 600 years before him, talking about poems he read, and then Holden's just kind of like, yo, you seen this? You seen like Teletubbies? And they kind of check in with each other how they're feeling. They're both feeling very nauseous, the radiation's kicking in, they're struggling to get up. And then they kind of muse about, or they wonder, why is this all happening? So slaughtering Eros, they go again. Any station is pretty easy to kill. It's just a rock. You throw a big another rock at this rock, and it'll crack it like an egg. But then this isn't a murder like that. This is different because there's so many sensors. They notice. Like they saw when they spoke to the guy who Miller had previously arrested, who they used as a decoy. He's like, they said they had all this communication stuff in. They had the little robots presumably to go in and move people about. They had all this kind of science stuff. So they're kind of doing this because they actually just don't know what the molecule does. So they need a big sample size, they have to do some testing and do some monitoring after that. And Miller is kind of, as he's thinking about that, he realises the first Miller, not his deaf Miller, is talking. So the one that doesn't want to just kind of mong out and die. And he says they don't know what it's about, or at least they don't know what's going to happen. This isn't even built like a torture chamber. It's all being watched. Water and air sensors. It's a petri dish. Thinking they don't have laboratory. Holden's like, well, we don't have laboratories, not Labradors, to do all that kind of stuff. Miller's like, they must need something bigger. or they want more people and they want to see what happens when they put it on a station, and rather than just like one guy in a lab, when you kind of have this test tube, was it the Petri dish, which is itself Eros. As he's thinking through all that, the Julie Mao in Miller's mind brushed a lock of hair out of her eyes. She was frowning, looking thoughtful, interested, concerned. It all had to make sense. It was like one of those basic orbital mechanic problems, where every hitch and veer seemed random until all the variables slipped into place. What had been inexplicable became inevitable. Julie smiled at him, Julie as she had been, as she imagined she had been. Or as he imagined she had been. The Miller who hadn't resigned himself to death smiled back. And as I kind of sat there, thinking about things, getting a bit happier, another group of people storm the security guards and they all get shot down for it. And they're like, we can make it if we got everyone together, but there's no way we can all like build up a big crowd and charge them because they're breaking up any groups. And as they're doing so, Miller, well, Holden is at least trying to be hopeful, as he always is. And he's like, at least Naomi got away. She's amazing. She'd never put Alex and Amos in danger if she could help it. She's serious, professional, strong, you moan. You know what I mean? She's really, really... The Miller's like, yeah, she's fit in it. And Holden's like, nah, that's not what I'm talking about anyway. She's off limits because she's the XO. And basically he's just missing her as it's going on. And Holden's like, she would wait for us though, do you reckon? Like, she'd wait for us at the ship, if not in the closet. And Miller goes, almost for sure, Miller's deaf self said, not particularly caring if it was a lie. He thought about it for a long moment, then turned his face to Holden again. Hey, just so you know it, I'm not exactly at my best right now. And as he's sitting there after that, he notices a change in the air. And he sat forward, interested. His back felt sticky, but it was probably just sweat. Other people noticed a change too, like the current in a water tank, the attention of the nearby crowd shifted. And we get a new, kind of, the tube doors open to the transit kind of system in Eros. As the doors opened and the first zombies appeared. Men and women, their eyes glassy and their muscles slack, stumbled out through the open doors. Miller had seen a documentary feed about hemorrhagic fevers as part of his training on Sirius Station. Their movements were the same, listless, driven, autonomic, like rabid dogs whose mind had already been given over to the disease. He goes, hey, Holden, it's happening. An older man in emergency scrubs approached the shambling newcomers. His hands were out before him, as if he could corral them by simple force of will. The first zombie in the pack turned empty eyes towards him and vomited up a spray of very familiar brown goo. They were kind of watching them throw up, and all around this casino level, the tube station lights are going off. People are leaving these doors where they've been locked and they've been gassed and exposed to the molecule, and the dead men and women walk out. Vomit zombies, Miller said. And they're like, this is from the rad shelters. The organism, it grows faster in radiation. That's why it was so... that's why Julie was so freaky about the lights and the vac suit, just trying to really contain it inside herself. Whereas the opposite happened when they opened the cave and it was just full of radiation and gas as well to pump out all the oxygen. And they're like, they can't just pump it into the air because it's anaerobic, so they can't kind of aerosol effectively the molecule. They have to do it a different way because it was an aerosol, like a bottle of deodorant, it would just die in the air. And there were smears of brown goo on people's clothes, on the walls, and this goo is getting everywhere, which means people are getting infected everywhere. Some of the cops start arriving and spraying down zombies with gunfire, and all of the wounds as they shoot them fill out with black filament and zombies go down. And as that's happening, Miller kind of realises they didn't know these boys, these thugs, they thought they were also getting pulled out. But carne pour la machina, meat for the machine. They're just like everybody else, they're going to get fucked as well by zombies. And as he's watching that, he's kind of looking around all the other security guards and those 30-odd guys they saw guarding the way out of the casino who are more disciplined than others. They weren't shooting and they looked pretty relaxed. And Miller had thought hope was dead. He had thought all these chances had been played, and then, like a bitch, it all hauled itself up out of the grave. And he says to Holden, get up, they're going to fall back. And you can see there's kind of like the special mercenary people who know what's going on. They've got to pull out, or they are going to be saved. And they're going to leave the casino level while the thugs kind of slowly kill themselves and everybody else involved. And he says, almost as if he'd been giving the order to himself, Miller groaned and creaked to his feet. His knees and spine ached badly. The click in his lung was getting worse. His belly made a soft, complicated noise that would have been concerning under different circumstances. As soon as he started moving, he could feel how far the damage had gone. His skin not yet in pain, but in a soft presentiment of it, like the gap between a serious burn and the blisters that followed. If he lived, it was going to hurt. If he lived, everything was going to hurt. And the deaf self, so the part of Miller that's like, nah man, fuck this, I want to die. That's saying like, chill out, just go sit down, it's cool. Well, the rest of him is like, no, come on boys, you gotta go for it. The soft bruised centre of Miller's soul urged him to pause, sit back down, let the problems go away. While Holden, who kind of gets up next to him and he's got a blood vessel popped in his eye, he's like, we gotta get going. And the plan is they're going to try and follow the other security guards. They're falling back, but they can't be too close because they'll get shot, and they can't be too far away because then they'll be kind of mobbed in with the rest of the crew. Well, not the crew, sorry, the people in the casino levels. So they've got to just follow them just behind. And obviously the entire time stay away from a horde of zombies behind them. And as Miller's doing that, his death cell kind of chimes back in. It's, what are we looking for? An answer, justice, another chance for the universe to kick us in the balls. What is through that archway that there isn't a faster, cleaner, less painful version of in the barrel of our own gun? So yeah, his death cell's like, I'm taking the fucking Switzerland route out of here. Let's just euthanize myself. But you can see Julie Mao watching him, and she waves him on. And he starts talking to her. So he's seeing Julie Mao, and she's waving him on, encouraging him, and he starts talking to her. But he obviously gets confused when she's like, wave, come on. Holden's like, what are you on about? As he whispers, not yet. He has to kind of start, he's realising he's hallucinating and interacting with the hallucination. And he thinks, I probably ought to warn the guy. I should warn Holden. It is possible that I may start hallucinating or become suicidal. You might have to shoot me. They kind of start moving forward. People around them are getting covered in the goo already, which means they're going to be becoming zombies. He and Holden walk towards the archway, Miller pulling his hat on. Loud voices, the screams, the low liquid sound of people being violently ill. So Miller, he's back in the game. He's stared down his death self and said, "Nah, man, we gotta go get hurt a bit more." And he's put his hat on because he's a serious boy. So we had specifically noted at the start it was on his knee. Now it's back on his head. And they follow him down the corridor, and they just kind of stay behind them, and they're on their way out. We have Miller thinking, last chance he fought, and he meant both the last chance to live and the last one to die. And then they kind of lead Holden down the corridor. So yeah, good chapter that. I enjoyed that. Yeah, it's nice seeing the state Miller is in, how close he is to losing himself, and how much he's kind of dealing with like his depression and all his kind of imagining Julie at the same time. And how he's interacting with her is kind of a source of strength. Like, she's encouraging him to keep going. But I mean, like, we had it like last chapter with Miller, and a bit of this one where he realizes he can't meet her, first of all, because she's dead. And even if he did, she's not like it how she would be in real life. He's fallen in love with like imagination who knows not real, and he's only really committing to it now he knows he can never have it. Which is, yeah, poor old Miller. Sad, sad boy. And Holden just being lovely himself, going like, what's going on? Do you want to sing a little song together? So yeah. And obviously we saw some zombies, which is always good fun. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that chapter as much as I did, but more importantly, I hope you have a lovely week.